Hey, everybody. It's me, Michael. Thank you so much for being here. This is super, super exciting. It's very weird sitting here alone in my place, just sort of talking into a camera without seeing you in person, but that is the age we live in. But I'm grateful that you're all here. And I'm really, really excited. And I want to thank each and every one of you for submitting to the Trans Youth Acting Challenge. You're all here because you were a part of it. Either you're a kid or a young adult that submitted, or you're a parent or guardian of that child. And so just want to thank you for all of your effort and for being a part of this. It was so exciting. We had, as you know, over 200 submissions. It was just an amazing process to see everybody's tapes. So I just want to tell you what's going to happen today. We have, as you know, the casting team of Nickelodeon standing by. So I'm going to just talk a little bit about some housekeeping first. There is a Q&A button at the bottom of the screen. Please feel free to click on that and ask any questions as we're going along. Danielle is going to be monitoring that, and we're going to be aware of those questions as they come in. And then at the very end, we're going to be answering those questions in real time. So please feel free to click the Q&A button and ask any questions that come up for you. We're going to go for about 90 minutes. And I want to say that the Casting Society of America is co-sponsoring this today. They are hosting this webinar through their channel, and that's really a big part of what we're doing with the challenge is to open it up to the entertainment industry, and basically inviting people like the CSA, like Nickelodeon, to say, hey, we really care about trans and non-binary youth. They're important, and this is how we're showing it, so that you know that there is a whole network of people and a whole infrastructure within Hollywood that is saying you are important. We are opening up the doors to make sure that you're seen and visible and taken care of. I just wanted to acknowledge the CSA for co-sponsoring today. What's going to happen over the next 90 minutes is I'm going to talk for a little bit. I have questions that were sent directly to me before the webinar. As you know, you can send questions in. So I'm going to be addressing some of those questions for about 10, 15 minutes, something like that. And then we're going to bring the Nick team back in, and we're going to talk about all sorts of things, including the do's and don'ts of the self-tapes, and talk to you about what worked, what didn't work, that kind of thing. And then we're also going to be answering the questions that you sent to the Nickelodeon casting team, that also may be some questions that might overlap with some things that I do as well. And then after that, we're going to answer the real-time questions, the questions that you're sending to us in real time. We'll have time at the end, about 25 minutes, to answer those as well. And then we're going to talk about what's next. What's next after the Trans Youth Acting Challenge. So that's how the next 90 minutes are going to go. Let's see here. I'm going to just really quickly bring in the Nickelodeon casting team so you can meet them, and then they'll go away for a few minutes and then come back. So Nick casting team, turn your cameras on and come say hello. All right. So I was going to introduce everybody, but you can kind of introduce yourselves if you like. I mean, okay, I'll start, and you can just say hi, say a couple words if you want. So Julie Rose is the VP of casting at Nickelodeon. This is for all of Nickelodeon, the network. So say hi, Julie.
Good morning. I wish I could see all of you, but this is awesome that we're doing this. I'm happy to be here.
Thanks. Now Danielle Prestfelder, who's based in New York, is the director of casting.
Hi guys, so excited to be here, and thank you for all the great questions. It's going to be really fun.
Danielle was really key in reaching out to all the organizations that you might have interfaced with when you got the information, and we were working very closely together on this project. Lindsay Fuerst as well. Lindsay is the senior manager of casting.
Hi there, so nice to be here. Again, wish we could see you guys, but we had so much fun watching your tapes and really excited for the webinar today.
Yeah, Beth, I'm sorry, Beth, I forgot to ask you how to pronounce your last name.
No worries. This is Beth Benge. Thank you guys all for joining us today.
So Beth is senior coordinator of casting, also based in LA, and Sam Steele's coordinator of casting.
Hi, everyone. Also
dialing in from New York. So excited to get to answer some questions for you guys.
Great. Oh, so you're based in New York too. Okay, great. So we've got 2 New Yorkers and we've got us 4 LAers. Great. Cool. Okay, so thank you. The team's going to come back in a little bit to answer some questions. So for now, I'm just going to look at my cheat sheet of questions that you guys all sent me, and they were like really, really great, really great questions. So let's see here. I got a little too organized for my own good. There's my cheat sheet. All right. So yeah, there were a few questions about like asking for me to talk about my journey with regards to transition and also like gender identity, and then how it overlapped with acting. So basically, I was born on a stormy winter night in Winnipeg in November. Okay, maybe I'll fast forward. So I was born in Winnipeg, moved to Vancouver. I pretty much grew up in Vancouver. And I kind of started acting there. I mean, I'd always been acting as a kid, doing community theater. I loved acting. I loved the Carol Burnett show. If you don't know the Carol Burnett show, look it up. It's really how I learned comedy, by watching that show. Just brilliant physical comedy. It's all kind of sketch comedy. And I knew from about the age of 4 that I wanted to act. And I did more community kind of theater stuff. There wasn't a lot available where I was. So, and then I went to college. I started off as a theater major, but it just something wasn't right. And I transferred into science. So I got a Bachelor of Science degree in cell biology, like most actors. And then I went into production. I worked as a PA. I worked as an assistant director. I did research for television programs in Vancouver. I did kind of everything but acting, and I did a lot of voice acting at that time. But not on camera acting. And I think some of that had to do with the gender stuff. I don't think I felt comfortable being seen on camera, but in voice, I could kind of hide behind it a little bit. And then I moved to Toronto to do my master's, and it was there that I went, okay, it's now or never. Like I got to pursue acting. And I kind of knew that when I pursued it, that something was gonna be difficult. Like I was going to have to face something in myself. And at that time, I didn't know what it was. And then about 2 years in, I realized what it was. And that was that, oh, I'm a guy. I always knew, especially as a kid, there's a picture of me when I'm about 18 months old with a pipe in my mouth. Like I just knew, but it got pushed down for me. Back when I grew up, like nobody knew about this stuff. It's not like now where people at least know about it. And there are way more resources. So it kind of got pushed down, when I was about 9 or 10. And so then as an adult, and I was aware that I had gender dysphoria. I was aware of that, but I didn't really think it through. I kind of compartmentalized it. I just put it aside. So then when I got to Toronto and I committed to acting, that's when it hit. And I was booking female roles, and I was doing pretty well. And when I had this kind of epiphany, like, I'm a guy, I have to live my truth, I need to transition. It felt like you open the door to the truth, you cannot go back in. I mean, it did not feel like a decision at all. And so I went to my agent and said, hey, this is happening. And this was back when nobody knew what this was, like nobody. And for sure for guys, like maybe men, or maybe women, I'm sorry, for women, like knew about trans women, but only through tabloid, like weird stuff and Jerry Springer, but nothing like now, where we have, public role models, So my agent just said, okay. And she was great. And she said, okay, well, let's just take a little break and then we'll put you back on the male roster when you're cooked. I think that was the word she used, actually. So I transitioned and went back and got my headshots, and then the rest is kind of history. I just worked as a man. I was very supported. I had a lot of great experiences with people. I mean, obviously some weren't as great, but those people were very far and few between, mostly really supported. And then I moved to LA after being in Toronto for a while and gaining credits. So that's kind of my story in a nutshell. Of course, there's a lot more to it, but that's the overview of it. So I transitioned as an adult, where, many of you are obviously transitioning much younger. And I'm really touched that that can happen. It moves me that you can be your true self early in your life now, and that that's possible. Someone asked about being a Canadian and working in the industry. And, just to answer that very quickly, I applied for a visa. I had to prove that I had, extraordinary ability visa. That's what they call it. So you just apply for that. And that's how I got to the States. I'm not going to speak for Nickelodeon, but I can just say what I know is that for series regular roles, they will have calls, they will take auditions from Canada. And if someone gets a series regular role, they will oftentimes assist with the paperwork for visas and that kind of thing. But if I'm wrong with that, you guys can definitely correct me when you come back on. But that's what I know. For guest star and co-star roles, that doesn't happen. Not generally speaking. They don't usually have you come down. Okay, let's see. I'm going to talk. There were some questions about being an actor and being trans or non-binary. It's a bit of a different situation for depending on how you present, how you want to present, what kind of roles you want to go for. And I'm going to answer this generally, and if there's more questions about this, please feel free to ask me in the Q&A. But my philosophy, and this is regardless of whether you're trans or not, goes for all of humanity, is the number one thing is to be authentic in every way. It's like, there was a wonderful, beautiful question from someone who said, I'm non-binary, I have a very deep voice, I love my voice, I don't want to change it, but I've been told that if I do, if I make it higher, I'll book more roles. And I want to say to that, and they also said if I took hormones, it would go higher. That is not true. Female hormones will not make your voice go higher. That's vocal training might. But I just want to say that what you love about yourself, do not compromise for anybody, no matter what they tell you. They say, oh, you should dye your hair brown. And you like, I love my blonde hair. You keep your blonde hair. Because ultimately what happens is when you show up in that room for an audition, if there's the most important thing is that you are comfortable with yourself. And if you start adapting yourself for other people's expectations, first of all, it's a moving target. It always changes. And in some way, you're not going to feel good about yourself. And the number one thing is you have to feel good about you. And especially people like us who are dealing with gender identity issues, it's such a different battle. We have to deal with sometimes being at odds with how our body is and how we truly feel about ourselves and who we are, and being mistaken and being misgendered and all those kinds of things. So we have to lead from what's true in our heart. Start there. Always start there. And then if you choose to change something because someone says so, you do it from a place of empowerment, not pressure, not obligation, not, oh, well, maybe I'll work more. No, you'll work more when you're authentic and your skills are good. That's when you work. And if you're great, that people will make roles for you. Like Chris Colfer on Glee showed up, and he didn't say, oh, I should have a lower voice, I'll book more, because I bet you people said that to him. He sang in his amazing, almost soprano voice, and they created a role for him because he was so unique and special. So especially for people like us, stick to what is unique about you, celebrate what is unique about you, get behind it, get training, get skills, be grounded in yourself. And that's when you book. And when you book, you will feel so much better because you're being booked for you being you, and you can get behind yourself. And it's so important. Okay. So with regards to training, someone had a really great question about finding a teacher. And I talked to a colleague of mine who I really respect, who's also an acting teacher, and we talked about this question. And the question really is, how do I find a teacher that is really going to understand me as someone who is trans or non-binary, or whatever your case is, but how I don't want to spend all my time educating them. And so here's the thing. a really good teacher, no matter what, is going to be individualizing their training for the student. They're going to be able to see the unique needs of that particular actor and be able to customize how they're teaching in that moment for that actor. They're going to see what your needs are. A good teacher, let's say they're not trans, right? A good teacher will know that they don't know about the subject. They will say, listen, I'm limited in my understanding. So, you know, I may need your help to understand if I mistake something, if I not getting something, you know, please help me, you know? And I think that we have to have patience for that. People are becoming much more aware, much more educated. It's not our job to educate in a sense, but it's like anything else. You need to advocate for yourself when you need to communicate, and you need to find a teacher that is really open to understanding you, but not just you, better everybody in that class for their own unique situations. And it's more about, how do you vibe with that teacher? Do you like that teacher? Do you feel good about that teacher? When you leave class, are you excited? Do you feel like you've learned something? Are you excited to go back? All those are good things. If you're feeling not sure, or I don't know, well, it might not be the teacher for you. They might be great for someone else, but not for you. If you're feeling any negative feelings, if you're feeling like really icky in some way, or they don't understand you, or they make comments that are not, you're not comfortable with, and you can't discuss it with them, you leave, go and find someone else to work with. If you're, obviously most people on this call are kids and under the age of 18, you know, your parents are there, help get them to advocate for you. They can have these conversations with the teachers, much as they probably do if you're going to school. So again, finding people that you resonate with is so important. Okay. Someone asked about how do we feel about casting non-trans actors in trans roles. Right now, that's kind of a taboo thing in Hollywood, and it has been for a couple of years. It is not culturally acceptable to cast non-trans people in trans roles, and I think that's you're not going to really find that happening. When you see a trans role or non-binary role, generally speaking, they are asking for people who have authentically have that experience. And that is kind of the unwritten rule right now. I think the goal in Hollywood is that changes. The goal is that the trans and non-binary people are so accepted, so integrated, our stories are so well told that it's not an issue anymore. So we're talking about a couple hundred years down the road. But in our lifetimes, I don't think that's going to be a thing. And I hope it's not a thing. And we have organizations like GLAAD to speak out when that happens. Someone asked about going from stage to film. That's a very general acting question, so it doesn't have much to do with the topic of gender and that kind of thing. But I can just say that what works in stage works in film. You just bring it down a little bit. So imagine you have a dial on your acting, on your amplifier. You just bring the amplifier down. So you have to be grounded, and you have to be expressive and authentic. And in theater, you just have to turn the volume up. So a gesture like this in film would be like this in theater. You just bring it up. But it's still the same training, same grounding. And you have to know how to modulate yourself, how to modulate, meaning how to turn up the volume, turn up the size, and bring it back down. So that's a short answer to that question. So I think I've hit most of the questions here. There's a question about, does the range of your voice impact the roles that you book? I think it depends on the role. I mean, generally speaking, if the voice is not an issue, then no, they're trying to tell a story, right? So do you tell the story? Are you coming in as the character and the story makes sense through you? And so I think if you're self-conscious about your voice, there's some wonderful people that can really help you with that. speech therapists and that kind of thing. And there's a couple of great places in LA that will do that. And I don't know about other places, but people work remotely, so you can get help with if you're feeling. I certainly did. I was self-conscious about my voice when I was first starting in voiceover after I transitioned, and I went to a coach and they helped me. It was great. Okay, so let's see, where are we at for time? I think let's bring Danielle in.
Hi, guys.
So we're going to shift the conversation a bit away from we're going to come back to questions, but I wanted Danielle to come and speak and talk about the feedback that we had, because you were the one that was really interfacing with the industry professionals, with agents, managers, et cetera. And I really wanted everybody to hear a bit about your experience with that.
Yeah, I'd love for Lindsay to pop on too, actually, because she
great.
Had that. We both were having the conversations, but
Sorry
yeah,
to leave you out, Lindsay. I didn't mean to do that.
but we had such great feedback from the industry on a whole. People are so excited that we were doing this search, that we are opening doors to your community. We had so many agents and managers ask us, if you find really great kids, are you going to send them to us? What are you going to do with all of these great kids? So the feedback was really incredible. And I think it's important for you to know that the industry wants to meet you, that there are people that want to see your work, and that this is a growing part of agents and managers rosters that they're looking to grow. That was a really big message that we received. Lindsay, do you have anything to add with that?
No, I agree. Like the agents and managers that we spoke with overwhelmingly were just so thrilled that this was happening and offering like, how can we get involved and how can we help people? And I think especially the reps that already do represent members of your community are even more passionate about bringing more representation and helping make sure that you get seen for the right roles. So there are advocates for you in the representation side of things.
Something that Danielle, that you said to me early on was that really moved me was when you were talking to reps, and they had trans and non-binary talent submit to them wanting to get representation, and they were hesitant because they weren't sure if there was going to be enough roles or what the response of networks would be. And then when they saw that we were doing this, they got much more open to having trans and non-binary talent on their roster, that floored me. It was so huge.
Yeah, I think a lot of people, they don't know the questions to ask, or they don't know what necessarily casting is looking for. And this was just so confirming to see that this is not just that we're open to seeing members of this community, that we're specifically seeking members of this community, and not just for transgender roles, that we're looking for people for all roles. When we're looking for roles, that's one of the biggest things that we do, is we don't say, that we're looking for a male or female unless, that's what we're looking for. But often we're just looking for the best actor for the role. So that could be any number of things. It could be someone that's non-binary. It could be someone that's trans. It could be someone that has a disability. It could be someone that's of a particular ethnic background that maybe they didn't think they should submit. But I think that's the biggest lesson that all the actors here watching should take away, is that if it's an ask that we're looking for just the best actor, if you're the best actor for the role, you're going to book it.
It's amazing. I mean, when we started this, my I guess mission, vision, goal is that it kind of twofold, and one was that the industry becomes more aware of the fact that trans and non-binary youth exist, of all ages exist, and that's really important, so that stories get written for characters who are trans and non-binary, that there are roles that are written for kids that are trans and non-binary, that's what the characters are. And in addition, that trans and non-binary actors, youth, can play cis roles. They can play non-trans roles, so that they should be competing in the same realm as everybody else. And so I think that's what's been so rewarding about this process, is that the talent that we have came through is just, it's so clear that a lot of the kids that have come through can be in your world of people to include on auditions, because they're competitive.
And that's why we asked for you to make sure that we have your contact info and that you check your CMail, which we can talk a little bit more about. But, this isn't just a one and done for us. We keep your information and we're looking to bring you back in for, auditioning for things that you're right for. So this is a big initiative. And this is something that we do, is that as a network, we keep people in mind for things in the weeks, months, years to come.
Great. So why don't we bring the rest of the casting team and let's talk about the self-tapes, the do's and don'ts.
Awesome. Yeah, if everyone else will turn their camera on. So yeah, Michael did such a great job with creating those videos that I'm sure you guys were able to see of what you should do in a self-tape, what we're looking for, the do's and don'ts. And we've gotten some questions actually in the Q&A about it specifically. So I'll just kick off answering some of those and then I'll throw to everyone to answer. So some of the questions included, should you be sitting or standing? I'd say in general, it's always better for your energy to be standing. Of course, there are specific, exceptions to every rule. But I think if you can be standing, you're always going to just give a stronger performance. And it means sometimes that your framing can be a little bit better and all of those kind of things as well. And another thing that's really important is your eye line with your reader. So we had a lot of tapes that came in where someone was looking down or they were looking all the way up, and it's really hard to, be in the moment with you and see how you're interacting with a reader when the reader is not in frame with you. So if that means you have to sit because perhaps the only person that can read with you in your house is in a wheelchair, that would obviously be an exception. If you, only have someone who's a lot shorter than you, maybe they could stand on a chair if that was safe. But in general, I would say standing is always the best way to go. Does anyone else have stuff? I could go on and on, but I'd love for other people to chime in.
No, I agree. And to Danielle's point about the eye line, like so much of the reason we say to look just off camera is because we want to see every expression you're making and the way your eyes are connecting to the reader. And so being able to really see all of your face, and that includes lighting as well, which I know Michael demonstrated beautifully in the video. All of that just helps us really engage with your performance and see all of the little decisions, both in the words you're saying, but also in the way you're emoting, like the nonverbal acting you're doing.
Yeah, and to add on to what you said about the reader, Danielle, we want to make sure you're doing everything you can to make sure you are the focal point of the self-tape. So as much as our friends and family and whoever is helping us out with being a reader for us wants to engage in the scene, we always want to make sure that you are the focus. Maybe they're a few steps away from the camera, they're not as loud as you, their acting is a little bit neutral so that you can really be that focal point.
And one other technical aspect I'd love to bring up is so many people are using their cell phones to tape, and cameras and microphones on cell phones work great. Want to make sure when you're self-taping that you're taping horizontally, landscape, rather than vertically. That way we can see as much of you as possible. And that's easier to do when you're taping landscape than portrait.
Anybody else have anything to add?
I think just making sure I know we talked about having a neutral background, and some people were very concerned that they don't have the perfect neutral background behind them, that maybe a wall is painted slightly. Those aren't as important, those things. The real thing is making sure that you don't have, a refrigerator full of magnets and all of your Christmas cards behind you. Anything that can pull focus. I know it sounds silly, but I've heard a lot of casting directors say this on panels recently. If your bed is behind you, make sure your bed is made, because it's very distracting to see an unmade bed or laundry that's not folded. Just move it to the side. Anything that makes you the focus, because that's what we're looking for, is to, see your acting and what you can do. And you don't want us to be distracted by any other objects on screen or anything like that.
I'm going to put my sort of my acting coach hat on here, which is also to say, follow the directions. Most people do, but a lot of people don't. And so we had really clear directions, and there was the video and stuff. And I know that some people, like, it's there's so much going on, and we completely forgave people who did not follow the directions. We didn't hold anything against you. It was totally fine. But when you self-tape for other people, and it's an audition where you're like going up for a movie or a TV show, they may not be as forgiving. So you really want to follow the directions as to what they're asking you to do. So shoot horizontally, not vertically. Frame it here, a medium shot. We had people that were in a long shot. It was harder to hear and see you. We couldn't see your face as well. You want to put your best foot forward and have the biggest chance, the best chance of booking the role. And like the all of you were saying, you just want to look just to the side of the camera. We had people looking like this, so you can't really see my face as much, right? It's better if I'm looking like this, you see me more. Those kinds of things. So really follow the directions and label your tapes. It really helps casting if you can label your tapes with your name and the character that you're auditioning for, and maybe even your agency. I don't know. Do you guys want agency?
I mean, sometimes we give specific directions for what you should label. So if that's there, follow that, because there's, whoever's downloading those tapes potentially or needs to compile them, you want to make it as easy as possible for them to, and you don't want to be the one sticking out like a sore thumb because your, video is ING 625, whatever that is that we'd have to relabel. Another thing that I know sounds silly, but this happened a lot actually on this particular search, is make sure that your contact info is included. I will find you because I want to find you if I thought you were the best actor for the role. But if there were, 4 people in the mix and one of them didn't slate, and it means you're going to have to really hunt them down. What if that was you and you lost that opportunity? So just make sure, like we said, make sure we have your contact info up to date, and that when you slate, I've had people give me their email address spelled wrong, something like that. Just make sure that it's very clear and that there's no, way that we can't find you. Or your guardian, obviously, if you're a minor.
So, I mean, if there's no instructions as to what to label the tape, put your name and the role on it, at least, and if they want a separate tape for a slate, then label that slate. The people who did that, it made it so much easier going through the tapes. It was really helpful. So, and also check your tape at the end. There was a couple of situations where like only half the tape showed up, and the person, I guess, didn't know. Watch your tape before you send it in. Make sure that your whole scene is there. How do you all feel about being memorized or not, holding sides for self-tapes?
I can start this one off. I think especially for like the pre-read phase of an audition, we're always a little bit more forgiving. The more off book you can be, the better, because that just means you're that much more immersed in the scene and not as distracted, and we're not hearing the crinkling of your papers. But I would say if it makes you feel that much more secure and confident in your performance to have it in your hand, even if you don't need to use it, do that, as long as it's not blocking your face or taking away from your performance. But especially as you go further along in the audition process, be off book, show that you absorb the scene and know how to make those decisions and adapt. But we know that sometimes auditions are like, turn this around overnight. And in those cases, if you can be off book overnight, that's phenomenal, do it. But, you're human. We understand that.
Yeah,
I say though.
I
was going to say, I would say though, that in the world right now where everything is pretty much a self-tape and you have the option to do it 100 times, be off book. I think it'll just make you stand out. I think we get it, like Lindsay is saying, especially when you're driving around to different audition or you get it very last minute and you're in person, like we all understand it. We're rooting for you to get the job. But when we have a little bit more time, or you're able to record as many times as you want, I think being off book just takes you up a notch.
Yeah.
And I think what I was going to say is having the paper in your hands, like Lindsay said, if that makes you feel better is one thing, but it's the idea that you need to be looking down at it the whole time. You know, if it makes you feel more confident in that moment, we get it if you have the paper in your hand and you look down once, but you're going to give us a better performance if you feel like you're off book.
You're also probably more connected to the character or the material because you just know it better. And if you know it better, you're going to give a better performance. It might take more work, but I think you're showing the casting director you're willing to put in the work, you know?
Okay, great. Anything else about the do's and don'ts before we move on to the questions?
I would say one last do and don't that we encounter, especially in self-tapes, is unless the scene specifically tells you to do a physical action like falling down or, running off camera or holding props in your hands, like we talked about, like we want the focus to stay on you. So any of that stuff that's going to distract or make your camera go off focus, like just bring it down for the self-tape unless the instructions say, specifically show us you falling to the floor. Otherwise, you can kind of like, do a half step or like mime it, but stay in frame so we don't lose you.
Yeah, that's a great note. And also, you don't have to put on a costume. If you're auditioning for a doctor role, we don't need to see you in a doctor getup, you know? We think where the drive is, the focus is you, the actor. We want to see you and your performance.
Great. So let's take a look at some of the questions that were sent to you. Where do you want to start?
I'll just dive in if you want.
Yeah.
Okay, so this question is, I'm going to generalize some of these questions, but you'll, get your answer. So as a gender fluid teen, I don't just want to go for female roles, but all that seem to be a fit for me. If my agent submits me for male roles, and I'm biologically female and it's listed that it's a male role, will casting take my submission seriously? Is there anything that an actor can do to get casting to give you a chance for a role that's not of the gender that you were assigned at birth? I mean, my answer is we're looking for what you can play. There were also some questions about if your actor's access profile says female, or if when we do searches on Breakdown and things like that, if we do use those filters. I can say I've tried to use those filters and they often don't work. A lot of people are for some reason marked on Breakdown as non-binary or things that I know they're not, having known them. I've just tried to play with those filters. I don't know about anybody else on my team. I don't use those filters. I look at the actor for their particular submission.
Yeah, I feel like if you feel like you can portray this character that is written, casting is looking for, submit yourself. Us as a casting team, we are always looking for a great performance and someone who feels that they can connect with this character. So we look at everyone for that. And I know Casting Society of America, our family there, like everyone's just looking for the best human for the job. So I wouldn't get tripped on all of that. I would see if you feel like you connect to that character or that story and then submit yourself.
And what are the thoughts on if people should have, if someone's non-binary, should they have photos that lend themselves to looking like both genders? Like, should they have some photos that lend themselves to looking male, some that lend themselves to looking female?
I think it can't hurt. Not that it's a requirement, but just it's however you want to be seen, however you want to show up for those submissions. So if that means having examples of both on your profile, then do that. Because when we go through submissions, we do look at photos and the resume to be like, who could be right for this role, and having them in there just shows us a range of looks. Because unless you have like media attached to your profile that we can easily click through and see you playing a range of things, like those photos are all we really have at that stage to gauge like, how do you show up as a human being, and like, how do you present yourself?
I just add about in terms of non-binary, because and as someone who's not, I'm not non-binary, so but I'm coming at this more from how do I say this? It's like it's more about like, what roles do you want to play? Like if you're assigned, let's say you're assigned female at birth and you're transmasculine, non-binary. So do you want to play female roles? If you feel okay playing female roles, that's totally fine. But if there's something in you that's like, that doesn't feel good to me, that's not affirming, I only want to play either, transmasculine, non-binary roles or male roles, then you need to go that route. You go that route. And you move forward with who you are and how you want to be in this career. You get to decide. Don't let other people tell you how to be. So you have to decide, where are your parameters? What are your limits? Where are your boundaries around this? And then create a package with a supportive team that can help you. If you have an agent or manager, and if not, find someone else in the industry, or maybe your parents can help you do research about how to do that, what kinds of pictures to take, and what kind of agent or manager to go for that can help you put that out. Julie mentioned Actors Access. Like when you submit yourself, if you don't have a representative, you don't have an agent or manager, you can submit yourself on Actors Access. There are roles that get put up there. So that's why it's really important that you keep your contact information up to date. You have a picture, have a resume, even if there's nothing on it, or there's just, like just your, training or whatever, just have something up there so that you can be found, and use the Actors. It's all free, so you can put that up there. So I guess what I'm saying is, like, on your end, on the casting end, you want the best person for the job, but on our end as the actor, we have to let you know who that person is. That makes sense.
And I think, Michael, you said it best in the very beginning, like, be authentic, be who you are. That's what we're looking for. We can tell right away when someone's giving an audition and they're not being authentic, and that bumps us because it's not true. And that's not what we're looking for. So any picture you want to put up that is authentically you should do that, but don't put up something that's not.
Yeah, really important.
It's actually a really great lead into the next question, which is, what stands out to us in an audition? What makes us as casting directors remember someone and keep them in mind for future projects?
This is a good question. I'm sure we all have slightly different answers to this one, but you can come in for an audition or send in a tape and you could be completely wrong for that particular role. But if you make some really like interesting choices, or bring a really cool point of view, or just do something that's like very genuine and authentic to you, like, we remember that. Like, we track people, and anytime we get a project, we're like, remember that person that sent that tape for that preschool thing that was totally wrong for preschool, but was so funny, and we should see them for this. Like, that's how we operate. So even if, you don't get a role and it didn't go your way, like, if you gave it your all, if you brought your point of view to it, we're going to remember that and be like, what else is that person right for? And then that's when you get a request to tape for a different project.
And I know a lot of people have asked, what does that mean? Why are you guys holding on to my contact info? It's exactly that, like, that we might have something that comes up that you are so perfect for. And our job is to remember those great auditions. And a great audition it doesn't necessarily mean that you booked the role. One person books the role. But if you gave us a great audition and we can remember you from that, that is a win.
What happens is sometimes actors go, oh, how can I be creative and stand out in this audition? And that becomes a problem, because then what you see is someone trying to stand out. You don't actually see them doing the scene. So, and I call that actor agenda versus character agenda. You want to be playing the character agenda, not the actor agenda of, I want to book this role, so I'm going to be weird. So you want to be yourself. And a lot of you guys, you already did this in your tapes. The majority of you already did this. We saw who you were. It was beautiful. You be you, and just playful, normal you. And that is the uniqueness that Lindsay's talking about. It's about you taking you and bringing it to the role, not about you going, how do I be more than me? It's about how do I be me and let that shine. And that's how you stand out.
And you'd also be amazed, like the slate, you know, in this time, especially of everyone self-taping from home and very few people actually going to a room for an audition. We don't get that chance necessarily to get to know you and your personality just by chatting in the room. But you'd be surprised how much we can glean from someone's slate. Like that's the moment for you to just like show a little bit of your personality and how you show up and your smile and you know how you speak. So not to say that you should make that a whole show, but you know, don't just be like, my name is Bob, I'm this tall, you know, like talk to us and we remember that.
Yeah, I would say the slates are kind of more important than ever before because like Lindsay's saying, that's our only time we can see you not portraying a character. And I watch all the slates and I'm not looking for jazz hands and like, you know, fireworks. I'm just looking like Lindsay said, are you present? Are you putting your best foot forward and kind of showing us who you are by giving just simple stats?
So we had a question about when we're casting and it's a non-binary actor, how do we kind of keep our bias out of mind of what that person's gender is? And does that impact us bringing them in for a role? Like if we saw them last time for a male role and then they were submitted for a female role, do we think, why are they being submitted, or we don't want to see them?
I don't think about it, I'll be honest. If you're a great actor and we liked your performance, I'm gonna have you come back. The gender part isn't something that I even think about. It's about you as a human and what you bring.
Absolutely, just being your authentic self. And we keep saying can play. That's the language we use, can portray. So if you can portray that, you can play that, we want to see it.
I'd also say as a casting team, one of our favorite things to do is to present to producers an array of different humans bringing a point of view to this character. You know, like someone may have written a character a certain way, and we like to show them, we know you said this, but look at this, because it just opens up such different perspectives and ideas and thoughts. And that's one of our favorite things to do.
Julie, when you said, I was laughing to myself because when you said, I don't really think about it. And I was thinking, oh my God, this is so classic that us as like, I'm speaking for me in this community of having dealt with gender identity issues our whole lives. It's this thing that's like right here and we're dealing with, and the rest of the world's like, oh yeah, okay. You know, it's like not a big deal. But for us, it's always like, is this a big deal? Is this gonna be okay? Am I gonna be okay? Can I do my dreams? Is he gonna, and you're like, yeah, that's great. No, you're right for the role. We'll bring you in. Or no, you're not right for the role. Okay. And it's like,
I don't mean to be so dismissive. I guess I didn't mean that, but
that at all. I mean,
okay, good. I didn't mean to be like, oh.
No, I don't mean that at all. I mean that it's refreshing to hear that. It's so nice to hear that. It's as opposed to, wow, we really have to think about this. Are you male or are you female? And how were you born? That's not what's going on. So very refreshing to hear you go, we just want the best actor. You know, it's good is what I'm saying. Wonderful. I'm just laughing at myself.
Okay, good.
You know, no, I'm laughing at myself at how, we overthink it. We, people like, and I know my colleagues do, who in the trans community, we're actors, we're all like, we overthink it. And for, because of our experience and our concerns and worries that are thankfully, and for the most part, not completely unfounded, but to some extent.
I think actors overthink a lot, and like I get it. Like what you do is, I'm not an actor, and everything you have to do as an actor is complicated and it's a lot. But I just want actors to know, like, we're rooting for you. Like, we want you to get the job. In all sincerity, we want to cast this role. We've got a lot of roles to cast. We see hundreds of tapes, and we truly are for each tape like, oh, maybe this is the one. So just know that we're in your court, and we want you to get it.
Yeah.
Awesome. I
was just going to say, to add to that, it's our favorite thing to see actors grow, because we do get to see, actors audition over and over again. And whether that means growing in age, watching you grow up and become an actor in that sense, or watching you branch out to other roles that you want to play. So in that way, it thrills us to see an actor expand. You know, we wouldn't keep someone in a specific box, because that's the best thing about our job, is to watch you grow and expand to whatever roles it is you want to play, whatever that means for you. So
Also keep in mind, like, we're usually casting a whole bunch of roles at the same time, and especially where those roles have to interact with each other. We're not just thinking about the role you're reading for, we're thinking about how that ensemble is going to come together. So, you know, you're a piece of the puzzle, and we're always thinking, like, what's the right combination of puzzle pieces? And so sometimes that means, like Julie said, like bringing something unexpected to the producers to be like, this is what you're missing. Or this is what would make it really interesting. So it's always so many different pieces that like need to fit together perfectly.
Awesome. We also had a question that I don't know what the answer would be, so I'm curious to kind of hear everyone's thoughts. If a non-binary kid is auditioning for a role and they book it, when do they disclose their gender? Do they need to disclose their gender? If they identify as non-binary, but they're interested in a gendered role, do they need to say that at any point?
Is that any different for someone who's trans?
I mean, I don't think so. The question was directed that way, but I mean, I don't think I need to know.
No. I mean, I saw a question pop up here, like, do I need to put that I'm trans on my resume? Like, no. I mean, unless you want to, but no. Right?
I just wanted everyone to kind of weigh in on that.
I mean, I think personally, I'd love to know your pronouns so that we know how to communicate with one another. I know how to refer to you, but beyond that, no, that's all I would need to know.
Yeah, I think whatever you feel comfortable disclosing with the casting team, do that, because we want to make you comfortable. And like Sam said, we want to know what you want to tell us, whether that be your pronouns or anything else about you.
Yeah, I think it's completely up to you and your comfort level. And, you know, if you book a role, is it going to make you feel more comfortable on set? If you do disclose to someone, whether it's in like wardrobe or hair and makeup, like that's up to you. But it is in no way a requirement.
I mean, keep in mind, casting, what we do is hiring, just like if you were to go on a job interview. And sometimes it's helpful to know certain things about someone because it makes it like if we are, it helps us sell you sometimes if we know certain details about you or support you in a room, just like knowing your pronouns and the things like Sam mentioned, but nothing is required of such ever.
I mean, I certainly never, I disclosed only when relevant in my career. And sometimes it was relevant and most of the times it wasn't.
Awesome. So we have some questions about when to get an agent, how to get an agent, how to find an agent that would be supportive of this community. Does anyone have any insight or thoughts on that? That was a question both for you, Michael, as well as for casting.
Anybody want to take it first?
I mean, an agent represents you, so you have to make sure that this person, you speak the same language or they represent you correctly. Like, I think it's a relationship. And so just because you hear this agent might be the best, or they might have done this for somebody else, if you don't have a connection with them, they're not your right agent.
And just because someone represents like really flashy, exciting people doesn't mean that that's where you need to be. You know, sometimes the bigger agencies that have so many clients, while they come with like some flash and cachet, that means they have that many more people that they're fighting for. And sometimes starting, you know, with a more boutique agency or management company, it means that they're a little bit smaller, but it doesn't mean that they don't have the important connections. And it sometimes means that they have that much more time to spend their focus and their attention fighting for you and finding the right opportunities for you. But like Julie said, it's like, it's all about finding the right fit, who you click with and who you feel like gets what you're trying to accomplish.
And I don't think there's one time in your career that is the right time to get an agent. Especially for kids, it's a family decision. So I think, are you ready to be going out on auditions all of the time? It becomes a job then. So you have to kind of think about that. But if this is something that you want to do and you're ready to get an agent, there are definitely ways to find legitimate agencies. I know some people asked about, how do you know if something's legit? You never pay somebody to represent you, for example. That's a really good thing to keep in mind. You can also check like the SAG-AFTRA website to see if someone's like a SAG-AFTRA franchised agency. But I think the biggest thing to keep in mind is that you never pay somebody to represent you. They get paid when you get paid.
Yeah, and they charge 10%, not 30 or 40. What did you say? There was something that you said that was really important. Anyway, keep going. I'll remember it.
And we also had a question about, how do you find out about open calls? I mean, however you found out about us is a great probably resource, whether that was through your acting program that you maybe take acting classes with, or through your school. There's also websites that you can be checking, like we said, Actors Access or Backstage. Again, the biggest thing, how you know if something's legit or not, is that you're not paying to be auditioning for it. So and if you are a minor, you should have your guardian needs to be the person that's submitting you. Just like how we didn't communicate with you directly and you had to add a guardian on anything, that should be the same thing across the board within the industry.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, Michael.
That's really important, that all the kids on the call, if you're under 18, be careful, like really have your parents involved, or a guardian or someone that you trust to interact with people. Just feel protective over you, and I want to make sure you're taken care of. Sorry,
I would say, no, I was just going to say, if something sounds too good to be true, do some research and some digging. If someone says, pay us $500 and you're guaranteed to be seen by this, or you're guaranteed this opportunity, do some research about those people, because a lot of times, if it sounds too good to be true, it probably is, and you shouldn't be paying for access to auditions. That's a no-no.
I just want to just on a slight tangent for a moment about back to the idea of disclosure, whether it's to when you're on set or something like that. And I really want to emphasize that you're in control of your own story. So you don't owe anybody any explanations. The people in your life that need to know are your medical team. Obviously you choose how you disclose to your friends and things like that. But my philosophy has always been, the people that are in my life that are close to me, I want them to know who I am, and I want to share my life with. They know that this is before I disclosed publicly. They knew. Some of my coworkers knew, because it was relevant at the time. We had a conversation about something and I brought it up and said, oh, well, this is my experience, and that kind of thing. As a kid, there's also something which is like, some of you who are really young, really need to discuss it with your parents about disclosing, because, right now, unless you're really clear about it, like, down the road, you would have to change your name. If let's say you get a big role and you're out in the media, then you would change your name down the road or something like that, because you didn't want to have disclosed. Like, it's a decision that can follow you. So you have to think it through carefully. You do not owe anybody your disclosure. That is yours. You own it, and who you are. You're just you, and that's that. And that's all anybody needs to know. And beyond that, it's up to you how you want to navigate this business.
So it's the time where we should be switching over to the questions that came in real time. So I'm going to hop over to those. This is a good one for all of us, actually. Where do you see the industry headed as far as trans and non-binary representation?
I think positive. I think this is just the beginning, and I think it's headed in a very positive way.
I think, like Michael said, it's changing. It's taking time, but it is changing. And, I can only speak to what we're doing, but we are increasingly, making sure that breakdowns are released, not saying male or female if it doesn't need to be male or female. We say any or all genders. And, just same thing goes with voiceover. Increasingly, like our counterparts that do the animation casting are looking for voices for animated characters that just make that character come to life. It doesn't matter what your gender is. It just matters like, what does your voice bring to the life of that character? So I do think there are steps being made in the right direction, but know that you have advocates in the casting community and with CSA, and we're always trying to think of how to make it more inclusive and more welcoming.
More and more roles are being written for trans and non-binary characters, and now I think, you know, with this initiative and with other people just simultaneously at the same time being aware that trans and non-binary actors can play cis roles, I think that we're going to see much more inclusion and representation as we move on.
Yeah, and some people had also asked about having more behind the camera representation, and that's something that's really important to us as well. And is a big part of CSA is the training and education program and bringing people that bring a new lens to the casting world. You know, casting is a newer field in terms of the film industry. It hasn't been around that long. I know some people are asking about how to get into casting. A great thing to do is to look at the Casting Society of America website. There's some history on there and things you can kind of explore. But, you know, it's because it is a newer part of the field, it's growing really fast. And to us, having the representation in front of the camera and behind is a huge priority. And that is partly why you are getting to see more trans and non-binary roles, because there are more writers that are inclusive that are being hired that maybe are a part of that community. And that's a huge priority to us. So I think everything is trending in the right direction with that, but you know, change takes time of any sort. So, you know, we want to be at the forefront of it, and we love that you're here to support that and see that we're doing that. But we, you know, sometimes we're like, hurry up, let's go, let's make these changes happen. But everything that's huge takes a little bit of time. Then let's see, I'm going to move on to some other questions. We'd answered some of these. So, do you believe there's a space in the industry for trans women who don't do vocal training to heighten their voice? I'm very comfortable with my natural voice, but I'm worried I'm closing doors. I mean, what do you think of that, Michael? I know we addressed it briefly.
The key to that says, I'm very comfortable with my natural voice. I mean, I think that's key. Now, you could look at it in a couple of different ways. And it really is, no one can tell you the answer to this. You have to decide what is comfortable for you in terms of how much you want to expand your range. So as an actor, we have think of all the things you can play as like octaves on a piano, you know, and so a dialect, you can look at it like a dialect and say, okay, I can train my voice to go into this higher range so I can portray certain characters, you know, but that's not where I want to always be. I want to be in this speaking voice because that's where I'm comfortable. You can look at it as like a dialect, you know, like taking on like, you know, talking like this once in a while. I don't talk like this all the time. But I take that on as a, you know, because apparently, you know, I can get a job doing that. So it's an accent. It's not something would I be comfortable going to Costco talking like that? Actually, yes, but that's not the point.
I knew you were going to say yes.
You can look at it like an additional skill if you want to learn to raise your voice. You politically may not want to, because politically you might have a point of view on that, but I don't know if it's a political thing. I mean, you know, you have to make your own decision. There is no right or wrong answer. I think it's wonderful if you want to train your voice so that it goes into a higher register that is more typically the feminine register. Great, go for it, and then widen the scope of roles that you'll be able to play, probably. But it's not necessary. It's you're creating your career, you're creating your narrative, you decide how you want to be. And definitely, if you love your voice, you keep that and maybe add onto it, but don't change it.
I also think, just like we were saying, like you might audition for a bunch of roles that you might not ultimately be a fit for, or what the creative vision is. Like someone might also find your voice to be exactly what that role needs. So, you know, bring your authentic self. Doesn't mean that you're going to be right for everything. No, but no matter what your voice sounds like, that's still going to be true. but there are going to be those roles where people are like, oh, this brings such an interesting quality or layer to this character, and it really works.
You know, look, I was told for many, many years, like, you know, I always thought, oh, well, I'm short, I'm not gonna, and I was told by my first agent when I transitioned, well, it's gonna be really hard finding roles for you as a man. Short men, right? And I was like, well, we'll see about that. And a lot of people said to me, no, it's because of your height that you're going to be successful. I'm extremely unique, right? Because of my height, but it's that uniqueness that has created opportunities. And so, you know, I can't change my height. That's not something that, you know, really is adaptable. I can change other things about me. I can have a wig, I can have an accent, I can, you know, whatever. But so you decide what aspects of yourself you want to adapt and change, and there's nothing wrong with having a repertoire.
We have a, oh, you go.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, we've had a few questions about putting your preferred name on your resume as opposed to your legal name. Actors often use a preferred name. It's not related to their gender. So I don't know if anyone else wants to speak to that, but we're not looking for your legal name. When I book someone on a role, we ask for, you know, and we need your legal name for paperwork or tax purposes. That's a very different thing. But your resume should have the name that you use, just like we ask for your pronouns. We're asking for the name you want to be called.
That's great.
And we've also had some questions about the roles that you put on your resume, and if they should be only professional roles. I would say we want to see everything that you've done. We're not looking for only professional roles. And if you have a concern related to, say, that you played Annie before you transitioned, what would be some advice? I mean, I have my thoughts of what you should put, but what would you say you would put on a resume if you didn't want to list roles that were from before you transitioned in terms of the role?
Asking me?
Yeah, I'm just curious as an actor, because I have what I think as a casting director, and I wonder what the rest of my team thinks. But
I was in that situation, and I would put lead. If I didn't want to let people know that I transitioned, or I'd find a way to change it in some way, but to keep the experience.
that's exactly what I was going to say, is you don't have to list. And if you also, there's a lot of great places to look, like on Backstage or Actors Access, for just kind of like a template of what a resume should look like, but you don't have to put the character name. A lot of times it's very irrelevant. It's like if someone doesn't know the play, they're not going to know that you played this particular role or what that means. So if you say lead, that totally works.
Or just put Danny down and just say it was a typo.
I think
Perfect.
one thing with resumes is it's yours. You let us know what you want us to know about you, whether that be your experience, your skills, your pronouns. You are in control of what the casting team sees on your resume. So if you're uncomfortable sharing something, don't feel like you have to.
And to that end, oh, sorry, go ahead, Julie.
No, you go. I stepped on your toe.
No, I was going to say, to Beth's point about skills, like we really do look at all of those things. So if you are going to put list skills and talents, make sure they're actually skills and talents that you can do. I can't tell you how many times we see someone say that they speak a language fluently, and then we ask them about it and they're like, oh no, like, and you know, sometimes it happens where it's like, you know, you click a bunch of boxes because you're like, I did that once, but you never know when we're going to be looking for someone with a specific skill, like an expert in hula hooping. And so if you're really putting what your skills are on there, that's going to stand out to us. But if it's a laundry list of like 30 things that you've done once, then it kind of all loses meaning.
Yeah, we love to ask if you really can do the skill that's put on there. Like, really, can you yodel? And then, you know, it's fun. Like, you can really yodel. That's amazing, you know? But we hire people all the time that don't have any professional experience. It doesn't make a difference to us. If you're out there, if you're acting, if you're interested in this job, if you connect to this character, we're a team that wants to see your audition. So I wouldn't get tripped up on if you have a professional credit or not.
This IMDb question is intriguing me. The IMDb question.
Say it again.
There's an IMDb question. I acted before I transitioned, so my IMDb profile states my previous name too. IMDb doesn't want to delete it, and it really upsets me. Do you have any tips for that? Well, I can tell you from my IMDb is very difficult to communicate with. I don't know if you guys had experience communicating with them.
This is a fun fact. You can't communicate with IMDb. Like, one person at an organization is like the conduit between them. So if I needed something at IMDb, I would have to ask somebody who's the conduit. And same with, like, for CSA, there's one person who can contact IMDb.
If you
We've
have
had,
sorry, go ahead.
I was going to say, we've had actors who have had photos linked to them that are not them, and the wild goose chase you have to go on to get that removed, it can be challenging.
If you have an agent or manager, definitely talk to them about this and get some help. I can tell you that when they IMDb published my picture, and that I had paid Trump, I had paid $130,000 to Stormy Daniels. You guys know about this?
This is new.
Yes, apparently Michael Cohen, paid Stormy Daniels $130,000 to be quiet, and they had my picture, Michael D. Cohen. So Trump's lawyer, Michael Cohen, right? And so they put my picture, and it took 2 weeks. But I finally wrote them, and there was there was some sort of contact thing, because I have an account with IMDb. So if you have an IMDb Pro account, you can contact them. And I wrote an email and said, this is the last time I'm going to contact you. The next time will be from my lawyer. And the next day it was down. So I don't know if getting legal help, the Transgender Law Center might be a good place to go to for something like that, because I think that doesn't make IMDb look good if they're keeping your dead name up there. So I think try the Transgender Law Center, try your, if you have reps, and try, if you have an IMDb Pro account, contacting them directly and being very clear about why this is not okay. Okay, what else?
Awesome. All right. So there were some questions, and I know we addressed this, but I just want to make sure we're completely clear on it. If someone books something and there's any publicity, would you have to state in the publicity that you're transgender?
You never have to state that you're transgender unless you choose to. And the only exception to that is if you choose to take a trans role. Then I feel that's out of integrity to not talk about it. That's my perspective. That's my belief. I'm not speaking for anybody else. I just think that that it's important for the community that if you're accepting a trans role, that you're willing to say that you're trans. Or at least, like, I don't even say I'm trans, I say I'm of trans experience, but something to that effect, that you're a part of that community. But if it has nothing to do with gender and whatever, I don't think that that to me is someone outing you, and that's not cool. If you have a publicist on your behalf working, then you can communicate through that publicist and they can help to take care of that. So can a manager, to make sure that you're represented in a way that you want to be. What do you all think?
I mean, you would say what you want to say in press. I mean, it's promoting yourself.
It's personal preference. Like, if you want to be out there, and part of what makes you excited about getting press is the opportunity to be an advocate for the community, then you absolutely should. But if that is not what you want to be represented as, you just want to be seen as the actor you are or what you've transitioned to, and don't want to be known for the fact that you did transition, I don't think there's any reason why you need to.
Listen, I had 20 years of a career where I did not publicly disclose. I would have disclosed earlier. I was completely ready to do it. It just, the timing just wasn't quite right for whatever reason. It just was like, oh, that would seem weird at this time, or it wasn't relevant or whatever. I have to say that it's a very personal choice, and there's no obligation to it. And in some ways it's like giving away the best birthday present you've ever had by telling the world that you transition, because it's like, I'm finally being seen as who I am. I don't want to tell them that there was a time I wasn't, so I totally understand why people don't. but it's, you know, I felt like I needed to have a voice, you know, that was more important at that point. I'd already had time to enjoy the birthday cake. So you're never obligated to do these things. You again keep saying, I mean, that's the theme. You're in charge of your narrative.
And I love this question because I think it's really cool that people are asking specifically about working in the kids and family market. Some of the adult actors that we have here asking, what is our advice for the tone that we're looking for when you come in for an audition for a kids and family project? What is something that, you know, can kind of make you more marketable towards us? And for when you're working in this specific genre, what's any tips for auditioning, as well as once you're on set and working in this genre? I mean, I'll start. I think that one of the biggest things people think is that you should be talking down or giving us like a different, less truthful performance. Kids, like, especially see the phony baloney really fast. Like, they don't want to see you talking down. We don't want to ever be, you know, giving somebody like an extra corny, hokey performance. Like, it's hard to not find the comedy sometimes in the stuff that's a little bit more raunchy or out there, but like, you need to be able to make kids laugh with just who you are and the script that you have, and being like, you have to really bring a lot of yourself to the character. I mean, I think Michael is a great example of that. Like, why do kids love you? Like, what is it that you bring to it, you think, and what has made you succeed in this world, from Henry Danger to Danger Force?
Oh, wow. I'm sort of blushing. Well, thank you, Danielle. That's sweet. Well, I think especially for the shows that I you know, Danger Force and Henry Danger, is they want grounded. You know, you want to be grounded, and meaning that you want to be real and authentic, but at the same time, it is multicam comedy and it is a kids show. So you want to, you know, depending on the role, you want to be able to be broad as well. So that's kind of, it seems like a two different things, but it's not. You want to start from truth. You always want to start from truth. And then, like I was talking about the amplifier, you amplify it up. It's like, if you're a dancer, you know, if you're dancing hip hop or you're dancing the Viennese waltz, it's going to be a different tone, right? It's going to have a different feel to it, a different music. And so you want to watch the show, whatever you're auditioning for, you want to watch that show and get a feel in your body of what that tone is and what that feels like, and be able to operate within that, the music of the show. You know, in the music I use, you know, figuratively. So find that feeling and then have that come through. Always start with the truth, always be grounded, always be authentic, and then let it bloom from there. So and your intent is that you're a character telling a story, not an actor talking down to kids. So two very different things. Don't think of it as a kids show. Think of it as the show that it is, with a particular tone. Don't even, you know, you don't need to even think that it's a kids show. It has a tone. That's it.
I think at the heart of a lot of what we do at Nickelodeon, it's about the fun and the joy of the spirit. Like, a lot of what we work on is comedy. It's not exclusively comedy. More and more, we're working on other types of shows, like Are You Afraid of the Dark, and our show The Astronauts, that are a little bit more like single cam or have a little bit more of a dramatic edge to it. But, you know, we're looking for people that want to have fun, want to come and play. And, you know, that doesn't mean to like be a character the entire time. Like, we still want, like Michael said, that grounded performance, but like understanding comedy and how to like let yourself be silly and look a little silly making a choice, for the kids as well as for the adults. And then just one other piece for the adults listening is that, you know, we're a safe space for kids, and we want people who want to be in this space. So this isn't everything, but it's something. If your entire brand as an actor, as a performer, is, you know, maybe having some edgier, more inappropriate stuff that you put on YouTube or your Instagram, you know, that's something to keep in mind too. Like, is this the right space for you? Because, you know, we look at all of that because you become part of the family.
That's a really good point. I think the playfulness is really important, and the physicality. I think that's one of the things that differentiates some of the comedy, kids comedy, is that there's a lot of physicality in it. You don't see that much physical comedy in primetime, like adult comedy shows, but you see a lot of it in kids shows. So if you're able to physicalize a little bit more and play in that way, you're probably more suited to kids shows.
And Michael can attest to, you have to be comfortable being put in a wig or a crazy costume, or we like to have fun.
Oh yeah, they'll put me in a bean bath or whatever. It's part of the gig.
We had a question actually about physicality, which I think is a great thing to, and how does one get better at physical comedy? There doesn't seem to be a lot of classes about physical comedy, at least in this person's particular city, which is a pretty major acting city. But does anyone have any advice on how to kind of fine tune your physical comedy chops? Michael?
Watch watch it. Like, find your favorite physical comedians, watch what they do, get it on tape, just get a little snippet of your favorite part. Maybe it's like 30 seconds, and then play that tape and study it. Study what they're doing in like a dance. Watch the rhythm. So much of it is rhythm and timing. Comedy has no transitions. So you'll see someone, in drama, a turn is like this, right? And in comedy, it's like this. Right? It's like there's no transition. It's like it's very precise. So you'll see that, and you study that, and feel that in your body. Feel the funny, things like dance and movement's really helpful. Music is really helpful to understand rhythm. It's so much about rhythm. It's so much about relationship with the other characters. I mean, you can do as much in a scene by just completely doing nothing and staying still and just going. Okay, but they, just do that versus doing all sorts of funny stuff. Like, when are you silent and still? When are you moving? Like all that. You just watch lots of it, and notice what makes you laugh. Notice what you find funny. But yeah, I agree with you. There's not a lot out there. But improv helps. I took a great clowning course, not birthday clowning, but like theater clowning. That's great.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like we're always touting improv, and we're always telling kids and actors of all ages, take improv. We look, and we really do look for that on a resume. When we see that someone has improv training, that is a huge, like, oh, well, they have improv training. That's great. So I think that is the best way to learn how to really be physical and to be comfortable being physical. And like Michael said, dance is a great way to just be comfortable being physical. You might not be learning physical comedy there necessarily, but you need to be ready to make those physical choices. And someone who has the dance training and is more comfortable in their physical self is going to be ready to do that. And
work out and stretch, because all those little fine small muscles in your body, you need them for physical comedy, believe me.
I think if you research, a lot of the greatest physical comedians, like the actors that you watch, at the core of their training, I'm willing to bet most, if not all, took improv. It is so rooted in like being connected to your body when you're delivering the comedy, and it just kind of teaches you how to be free and loose with that.
And for people like us who've transitioned or have gone through some sort of gender journey, the connection with our body evolves over time. It's something you get more and more comfortable with, or at least from talking for me, like I got more and more comfortable with once I transitioned, it was night and day with what I was, comfortable with. But I always did physical comedy, but it was so much different for me when I transitioned, because I was comfortable. I was like, I could just do stuff and I didn't have this other thing hanging in the back of my mind.
Well, we're getting to the end of our time. So I want to throw to you, Michael, just to kind of wrap it up.
Well, I know there's a lot of questions we didn't get to, but this is in some ways to be continued, because I think that this, when we all started this, we all discussed that this is kind of an experiment, the Trans Youth Acting Challenge. We're doing this for the first time. Let's see what works and go from there. And it's turned out to be such a great experience. So we're thinking about, what is the next step? I'm going to send out in the next week or two, please check your email, because we'll be sending out a survey and just want to get some feedback from people, and also about how to continue this in terms of community. I'd like to know like what might be of support to you all. You know, we're thinking maybe we can set up a private Facebook page for everybody that submitted, you know, so that you can kind of connect with each other. Of course, it's all by choice, whatever anybody wants to do. So we'll include that. Make sure, again, we spoke about this earlier, but please keep your Actors Access profile, the profile that you use to submit your tapes, please keep it up to date, because I know that this team is so sincere, and I would not be saying this if it wasn't true, very, very sincere about keeping you all on their radar. And that has to do with whether or not you're doing the masterclass. Okay, the masterclass only had so many spots, and there were many, many people who were amazing. So please keep your stuff up to date on Actors Access. Check the CMail. CMail is an email that Actors Access will tell you when a casting director or someone is trying to get a hold of you for a role. So if you do not have an agent, that's how they're going to get a hold of you. So make sure your CMail is connected and up to date, and that you're checking it and that it's not going to spam. You could be getting a note from Nickelodeon Casting. It could be it could be never, it could be this week, it could be in a month, a year, you don't know, but you're on their radar. So make sure that you have your CMail hooked up and you have it working. Put your headshot and resume up, all that kind of stuff that we talked about. And we have some ideas about other things that we can do down the road that we're still exploring. So this is just the start of something, and you've been a part of that beginning, and a very important part of that beginning. And I want to thank you all for being so courageous to submit, to be a part of this. You are community, you are family, and I'm here to advocate and be your colleague and friend. So whatever I can do, I will do. And this team in front of me, Lindsay, Julie, Sam, Beth, Danielle, have been an incredible resource and are complete advocates for you, and really, really want to see trans and non-binary youth succeed and be represented on Nickelodeon and be on Nickelodeon. So you know that that's going on. So thank you so much. We will be in touch, and have a very safe rest of your weekend. And I wish I could see you all, but bye for now.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.